Hi everyone, welcome to today's Earthster training session. Today I have a special session because I have for the very first time with me Simo, who's going to tell you much more about Earthster, and I will let him present himself and also Earthster. And after Simo's presentation, I'm going to demo Earthster, do a small training, so kind of like good to know things and tricks how to use Earthster. I want you to keep asking questions in the chat area, and we'll go through all the questions that we're able to. So we might not be able to answer something, but if not during the session, we'll answer later. And that's it for the short intro. And what else would I say? Let's enjoy it, and you'll get to see also some feature updates that are coming up soon. But I give the stage now to Simo.
Thank you, Hajnalka. So I'm Simo Suurkuukka, partner here at Earthster. And today I will be presenting you with a little overview of Earthster. So if you're already familiar with Earthster, you might want to think of this as more of a how to sell this tool in your organization. So if you are using Earthster, but your organization is figuring out whether they should use it or not, this presentation is something that you could use to facilitate that. Or if you're new to Earthster, this gives you the main points that are important. So I will try to have my slides up here. Before I start, we are doing a study on how customers are asking for sustainability information from different parties within your organization. Heini will include the link for the survey in the comments. So if you want to participate, later you will get an anonymized data study report for knowing better what kind of requirements customers are having currently, and then you might use it to get a better understanding of what your customers might be asking in the future. All right, so an overview of Earthster. Scalable and future-proof LCA efforts. We often hear from our customers that LCAs are expensive and time-consuming. They used to be the case, but no more. With Earthster, you can make it 100 times faster doing your LCAs and utilizing them in sales, in R&D, in sustainability departments. But how is this possible? Well, our consultants say that our partner consultants say that it is the only LCA tool that doesn't give you a headache when you're using it. So it's very intuitive, very tangible UX and UI. It has instant calculations. So whether you want to test something out or try different numbers in your product, different compositions, you just put the number in and it instantly updates the whole model to match. Uh, uh, so that's the intuitive and tangible dynamic calculations make it 10 times faster to use. And the other 10x comes from building entire product categories at once. So building a template for, let's say, a product category of 100 products, you could just use that template and duplicate it, put the right numbers in, and you have 100 products of LCAs, ISO standard proofed. It's also a living document with version control, so always up to date. When you move something, if you change something in your product, you just make the changes in Earthster and you release a new version. And the graph here shows you how you can see the progress of your product's sustainability and environmentally efforts. And it's a full power scientific tool. Even though it looks nice, it's very scientific and very standard proof. Now, we are trying to make LCA understandable for anybody. So Earthster makes it easy for you to communicate the data to your leaders, to your customers, to all stakeholders inside and outside of your organization. The ease of use facilitates use across the organization. As I mentioned, this can be put in the hands of R&D people, in the hands of sales people, in the hands of the product department people, and they will be able to do the minor changes that they need, or their scenarios or comparisons that they need. And they don't have to involve the sustainability department. And we emphasize collaborative design with customers and with suppliers. It's always easy to understand what would be the best composition for your customers or from your suppliers to make your customers as satisfied as possible. Uh, Earthster is what I call a future-proof platform. This means that through our API, you can integrate, for example, ERP systems, CRM systems, other systems that you might need the data from for your LCA models. So you don't have to do all that manually. You don't have to use Excels to transfer data. The same applies for getting data from suppliers and sharing data for customers. You can do it directly within Earthster, asking for sustainability or environmental input data from your suppliers or sharing with your customers. Uh, and what makes it dynamic is that when your suppliers make changes in their product and update their LCA, you get a notification, you can update your LCA, and your customer then gets a notification and they get their LCAs updated. The full chain is covered. We facilitate full transparency in the supply chain, allowing people to share more easily. And we are working on AI-powered imports and custom reports that are coming next year. There are a lot of questions from companies to me about resourcing, training, and third-party verifications. So we provide LCA experts if you need them. Now, consultants, don't be scared. We're not going to be a consultant company. We are going to use you, the consultants, to help these companies out as our partners. We will train your staff to use Earthster as needed, be it R&D, sales, LCA people, anybody that needs it. And we will make your third-party verification process easier and faster through our partners. And whatever you need in sustainability, in environmental impacts of your products or your processes, we will support you through your journey. Uh, People who are already used to Earthster might know this, but to the new people, our co-founders include Dr. Greg Norris from Harvard. He's been teaching LCA for plus 20 years in Harvard, and Daniel Collado Ruiz, who's been teaching eco-innovation at University of Valencia for plus 10 years. We also have Antti Kosunen, who's an eco-innovator, and Mane Branco, who's a really good designer. And we also have a lot of people in our team that can help you throughout your journey. I will conclude here. If you want this presentation, to see this, to contact me, to see a demo, or you need this presentation for your internal use, you're an LCS specialist who likes Earthster and wants to communicate this better to your organization, contact me. Heini will probably put my email in the comments. Yeah, shoot me an email. I will respond, give you this presentation so you can easily communicate about Earthster. Thank you.
Thank you, Simo, for the really great presentation. I'm going to take off the presentation. So as you can see, the email address is a straightforward simo@earthster.org. So reach out to Simo. And before we get into the demos and trainings, if you have any questions already for Simo, please put it in the chat. There's a bit of delay between the live streaming and us answering, but that shouldn't bother you to ask questions. And I'm going to start presenting my screen. Today, I'm going to show you a new cycle that I've just gotten. So I haven't played with it a lot, but I think you're going to be excited not to see the same computer mouse demo as always. And let me start sharing my screen. Here you go. This is the first glance of a cycle. So cycles in Earthster, so LCA models in Earthster, we call them cycles. And this is one of those. And what you can see here is a template made according to a septic carton PCR, product category rule. And I think many of you are excited to see this. So with Earthster, you can do PCRs. What you need to have is basically a template built with bundles that you're able to report what the PCR, the category rules, are asking you to do. And the rest is up to you to model the cycle accordingly, your LCA. But you can create these yourself. And this is part of that how you can do LCAs in scale. You create one of these templates for yourself and you keep on reusing. You can duplicate as many times as you need and adjust accordingly, especially if you have different product models. It's much easier to work on once you have a model created to evolve on it. And Earthster is designed for doing quick iterations because it's so fast. Everything is instantly calculated. I'll show you in a moment. And yeah, so what you're seeing here is a live model. And let me show you. So when you're clicking around, Earthster has the visual perspective that's meant for you to see the hotspots straight away. And also people who are not LC experts. So any business person or salesperson or basically anyone, even a 5-year-old would be able to say that, oh, look, the biggest environmental impact is coming from raw materials in this model. And if we want to dive deeper, what's inside this model is those same circles are represented as rows. They're called rows, not rows, rows. These are bundles. Bundles are the way that you structure your LCA. Now, this is a EPD template, but you can use any other standard, or you can also model your cycles to give better insights for decision makers. For example, if you could model the LCA based on business units and functions, really useful when you're modeling your whole organization's LCA. And Earthster lets you do that. So it's flexible. You are in charge of your own scope, what you're including in your LCA and what not. And the tool bends to your will and goals. So for example, in this model, we have in bundle called A1, raw materials supply. So this comes straight away from a aseptic carton EPD in the product category rules. And here are added some processes that represent the carton that should be in this model. And as you can see, you're able to rename these processes. So processes are inputs to your LCA model. And let's see what, for example, is this one, aluminum foil. The process in here is represented, let me see, this is a custom process, isn't it? Yes. Something for you to be aware of. A custom process in Earthster is an awesome version of a bundle that you can do calculations with. You can apply multiplying factors. So it's basically you are saying that this is the recipe for this group of inputs, and then you're able to say how much of that recipe you're consuming. For example, if you would add here, you want to model to baking pizzas, you would say you would add all the inputs to make a pizza, and then you just say that for the next party you're having, you're making 4 pizzas. I know it's a really simplified example, but usually those work best to explain LCA processes. And now in this case, you can see that you are able to set up the custom processes yourself. So here, everything is added into this recipe, or sort of recipe, is added per 1 kilo. So when you add your own inputs, they need to be represented per 1 kilo, because that's how this custom process is set up. But of course, this is up to you. It could say 1 component, and then you add all those processes based on your, in a way, functional unit for that custom process. Now, let me show you, for example, this is a copy already I made. so we can make a huge mess out of this. And let's see, I mentioned that Earthster is super fast. So if we open, let's go back here. We change any of these numbers. Let's say we delete a 0 just to make a visible change. As you can see, it's straight away calculated. Even while I'm streaming, the internet is fast enough to show it to you, and everything auto calculates. So this makes it really powerful to use in eco design, because you can do these kind of things that, oh, what if it's this one? What if it's this material instead? And when you build your models with a template mindset, it's much faster to do these kind of play around things. And to help you do that, we have an upcoming feature that I'm not going to show you yet. I showed in the last session the parameters. So you are able to now add parameter, or soon you will be able to add parameters to your cycle and make it even more powerful to create templates and easier for example, for your salespeople to use your models. What this requires, this modeling requires, is that someone who knows a lot about LCA creates one of these templates, and then this template, anyone else can use it. So for example, a salesperson could be using it during their own sales meeting. Let's imagine you're selling packaging materials and the customer is asking that, oh, but I would like to make sure that it's more sustainable. What options do you have? And the salesperson clicks like, click, 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 look, this is how it is if we use biocomposite instead of virgin plastic. And gives you credibility also in your sales processes. But now, exactly, I showed you already that fast recalculates everything. We can add here also a 0 and it updates. What you're seeing here now is the impact category we use in when you have a basic subscription. We have currently available professional, collaborative, and a custom version that you can tailor to your needs. And in the basic models, you have 5 impact categories. And those are based on the Recipe 2016 model. The typical 5 that is most useful for making better business decisions, basically. So it's at the moment, the world is talking a lot about carbon footprint. Everyone wants to know the carbon footprint, but it's worth checking that how does your product look like based on the water use, because depending on the country or region where you live, paying more attention how much water you use might be more important than did you produce some extra CO2. And that's all depends on your strategy. So the impact categories help you. But now what you can see in my user, there is an option called other. If you have a full equipment license, you have extra impact categories. And if you have one, please send us a message. We can activate it for you in Earthster for free. Let me show you. So look, the additional impact categories are all the recipe end and midpoints with their different perspective. Environmental footprint 3.1, super useful for all the European customers. Many will like them. For example, if I click here, I'm able to choose different impact categories than those main 5. Let's see which one we use. Ozone depletion. I click here. I say view impact. Now this takes longer, but even this didn't take long to open. And it opened for me a view version of the cycle. And this is for practical reasons to keep it interactive, because otherwise it would take too long to be able to modify and see different impact categories. But just like a moment ago you were seeing, now you're seeing the impact in ozone depletion unit. I don't even know, CFC 11 equivalent. And what makes Earthster visualness extra powerful is that you can explore the data. Where is it coming from? So what you see now here, for example, all these pretty blue circles represent the impact. And these are what's inside your own model. Now, if I start clicking around, digging deeper, this is the first time the button Explore shows up. What does this do? What you're seeing here is that inside this model, there is a process called Market for Aluminium, a primary version. And now I can see what does EcoInvent have put into that process. Look, I click Explore, and then it opens all the impact, what are those? The inputs for that environmental impact and where is it coming from, and then you're able to dig deeper until the database or the process itself ends. And really useful. So exploring data sets is really useful when you're trying to decide that, okay, is sheet rolling aluminum for me the best version of the processes or a different type? Because you see it visually that, okay, this is what the EcoInvent data set includes. Now there's another way of doing also, and you are able to view the information itself. So let me show you from here. We go back to the live mode, or not the live mode, the actual edit mode. And there, for example, we open the carton board, any of these board production. Here, when you click on the information button, it opens the information that the EcoInvent process it has. And this is something that is changing really soon. So I'm happy to tell you that this week we will update to the latest EcoInvent database. And I'll show you in a moment what you'll have to do once we do the update. It's really simple. You just click update all and it updates your processes that uses EcoInvent processes. I mean, updates your cycles. And that way, we help you keep your data always up to date. So you don't need to download anything separately like in some other tools. What we do the hard work for you, and then you just click a button, update, and it does it for you. And let's imagine you have hundreds of cycles already. You can also send us a message to update it all for you. We can do it for you instead of clicking all one by one. Now, what I wanted to show, so this is already, it tells you some information. Now, the newer version of EcoInvent is gonna look cooler. You will be able to search based on, let me show you, I don't remember the exact names. We open one of these. Look, there's much more data than before. Helps you searching. There is product information and classification data. You can even search based on these numbers. Really useful if you happen to know those numbers. Useless if you don't. So no need to look up the numbers. And let me show you how you search for processes. Meanwhile, I'm starting to do that. Any questions so far? Or any particular topics that you would like us to show you? Please write it in the chat and let's see what we can do. So I wanted to show you how to add a process. And now it's thinking longer than usual. Screening browsers is not always easy. Or I mean, it's heavy on the browser. Let me see. Now it's doing it. Okay. As you can see, sometimes it might get slow, but this is clearly my connection that it doesn't like the streaming itself. We are going to add a new process. Here. I was faster than my internet connection. So adding a new process. It opens the search function. You're able to prioritize geography, and usually it takes the location where you are from, or if someone else has created the cycle, how they have set it up. And I could say I want to choose Europe. And this is just prioritizing prioritizing all the results that you're seeing here. Now let's look up, for example, plastic. What do we find? As you can see in the search, super fast, it's already telling me that there's more than 7,000 results for the word plastic. The search is taking words from the title of the process and whatever is inside here in the description part. So it might find wrong ones also. And to make this better, you can add multiple keywords, for example, plastic recycling, and then you get different results. The next step, still we have 1,100 results, and you're like, oh, how do I find what I'm looking for? The next step to do is when you know that you have a good search term, you can use synonyms. There is different English versions depending on where you're from. You can try different versions, but I recommend using filters. So the tags itself. And now if we want plastic recycling, we select that show us only waste management. We click here. It has selected as a search filter to show only the ones with waste management. And this is something unique to Earthster, that we have categorized all the EcoInvent and USEIO database processes to help you find them easier. And you're able to filter based on the unit itself, geography, and origin. So you could say that, no, I don't want to see EcoInvent, I want to see other databases. For example, USEIO has something that has plastic recycling in it. And as you can see in this search result, what also shows up is cycles created by other users. In this case, when it says Earthster, someone has created a cycle inside our own organization called Earthster, and it's shared publicly. Actually, this one might not be public, because for me, it obviously shows it because I'm part of the Earthster organization. When you find one that says Earthster, that means that we are sharing it publicly. We have many cycles on purpose shared. Some of them might be just demos and might not be that valuable data. But this is the case for any other organization. So you can share all your LCA models if you want publicly in Earthster. That means that someone who is modeling your product, for example, you're supplying the cardboard for the carton box, and you have already created in Earthster a model. What they can do, instead of writing, let me take these out, instead of saying carton and we just take an EcoInvent one, here will be show up your own organization's name, and they are able to take a much better data set to use in their model than the EcoInvent one, because of course the EcoInvent one is a great one, but it's still an average, and you know better your own production. So if your organization likes sharing data transparently, we give you all the possibilities. If not, then we have an awesome other way to do it. You can share it only with your customers. And you're able to even decide how much data you're sharing. So now if we go back to this model that I'm fiddling with, in the sharing settings, you can select how much you're sharing, what level of data you're sharing. To share it, first you need to create a release. And the release is needed for, it's kind of like a version control where you're saying that this is good enough, this is a good version that I want to keep in a way or keep track. And we are just gonna make a release, copy the version, like that. And when you have created many releases, you get an awesome graph of the evolution of your product. For example, let's say every few months, your raw materials change and you keep your cycle up to date. So your suppliers give you the environmental data, you update your own cycle, And this graph would show you an awesome evolution line that what has happened to your product's environmental impact. Now, of course, there's nothing interesting because I just created the first one. But let's go back to sharing the cycle. You have, exactly like I mentioned a moment ago, you have two options. You can share with the public, which means anyone who is using Earthster can see and can search for it. And you can share the ones who are your customers. And you are even able to decide based on that you don't share with all the customers, but you want to share it with your most trusted ones. For example, in this case, I want to share it with test organization. I can say all levels, everything for them, nothing for anyone else. So you're in full control. We help you to be transparent, but it's up to you to do it. Any questions? I would like to have some questions today. So let's see. And we are now about halfway of our session. And I would like to remind that in case you just joined in, so this is an Earthster training session where the main goal is to train you how to use Earthster. So give a bit of a teaser and talk about the latest feature updates. It looks like we don't have any questions at the moment. So I'm gonna keep on showing things. Let me see. So this is about sharing. You're able to share. And the important part on the sharing is our concept of connected LCAs. You can connect your own LCA. So you have created an LCA for a certain product, and this product is used in another cycle. You add that as a process. So you need to keep it up to date only in the original one. And you know that every single time, if it's used in several cycles, it will be always up to date. And related to updating your cycle, this is how you see it if there is any updates available. For example, here it says one update. If I click here, it opens the data sources section of the mini menu. So if we go from here, it's the same thing, the one called data sources. In here, you see some statistics about your own LCA. We are using 14 processes from EcoInvent. At the moment, it says all of them are up to date. And when we actually push the release for updating the latest EcoInvent database, all of these will say there is an update available, and some even will show that there's a deprecation. And what deprecation means is that EcoInvent no longer has that process in the new database version, and the system will give you a suggestion what to change it for. For example, an old model combined various metal minings together, and in the new one, it separates gold and silver. That's just an example. I'm not sure if that's actually true, but that's how it works. That's the concept behind it. And as you can see, all these are up to date, but I can see that here, one of my processes is, where is the one that needs updating? It's tricked me, the system. Here, what you would see is that there is an update available. And what you can do is you investigate where are you used, and just click the button, update my cycle. Let me show you. If I go to our test environment, there is always more updates. I need to zoom in so that you see better. Here, now you can see better. See, 9 updates available in this model. Exactly what I was mentioning. Deprecated, click to swap. New version available. If I click here, I can go one by one to update these processes, or I can just click update all. And it's that simple. In this model, I don't have any requests to suppliers. That's something that I do want to mention briefly today. Yes. So new versions available, I can show maybe with one of them. Let's update this one. We click update, and as you can see straight away, the Environmental impact is smaller. Now it says up to date. It updated my model. Everywhere gets updated. This simple is to keep your models up to date with the latest database updates. So we do the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to think about it. How do you connect them with the right impact categories? We do that all. Now, any questions? Yes, there is some questions. I was too busy talking and I didn't notice the questions. Let me see. So someone is asking that can you use that LCA permissioning to give value chain impact data? I'm not sure if I understand the question, but if I understand correctly, what happens is you give, let's go here. So if we go here in the sharing settings, when you are giving a right for your customers to use your data, you are giving it for that particular organization, in a way, account to use that data. They are able to add it in their own cycles, and anything outside of that. So, for example, if now they share that forward to another organization, they won't be able to access it. But it's possible. So you can either add them as a customer or just decide that you share it publicly, and they're able to do that. I'm not sure if I answered correctly or what you were looking for. If not, please specify a bit more. What do you mean? And then let's see. Another question. Can firms inside one supply chain share selective product or geographical LCAs with buyers who need to use that some data to create their scope 3 data? This is also a tricky question. I'm not sure if it's an English issue. Selective product. Let me show you something that I think answers your question. And it's the one that I mentioned as connected LCA. So I go back to Earthster. I mean, to the live app that you see also the same way, because Amber has many other things that others are not able to see. So a connected LCA is when you connect a cycle either internally in your own organization, so two cycles together, or externally with another organization, for example, your supplier. And we make this super easy for your suppliers and even for you. Look, let's imagine I have, for the aluminum foil, I have an awesome supplier, I know them super well, and they're like, oh yeah, they want to use Earthster, they want to give data through Earthster for us. And this is the one that I'm using in my model. So I already have modeled my model and I'm using this to represent their product. What I can do is you click into the process description. Here is a button called Request LCA from Supplier. Let me show you. This is a simple form. You just add here, for example, if you have already the supplier in your system. So a supplier is an organization that gives you data. A customer is one that gets data from you. And the same organization could be on both sides. Let's imagine we put here test organization and I just add a comment that what I need from them. I need your LCA of the and then you just send it. This sends an email, and that's simple. Now, what they get, the supplier in this case, is an awesome way of giving you faster data. They get this eco-invent process as a template. Look, if I click now here, view as a cycle, it shows the eco-invent process itself. And this is what the supplier gets to fill and edit. So they are able to say how many kilos of primary aluminum they're using, all the transportation they are having. And once they are done with it, they issue a release. That release will trigger this notification that there's an update available, and you check it. You're like, okay, this is awesome, accept the changes. And now your model is connected with your supplier's model. So anytime they do changes and issue a release, you can update your model. And this trickles down the whole supply chain. So if the supplier invites their supplier and do the same thing, you'll get your whole value chain, your whole supply chain. Everyone knows the environmental impact. Of course, if everyone shares the full impact, you can also just share the total impacts, which would be saying only this part. Let me show you. This would be the total impact. But already that is better information than an average eco-invent process. And now let me show you exactly. So it's in a way painting by numbers. You give them the opportunity to give you data, only what is considered relevant. All the eco-invent scientists, LCA researchers have decided that these are the relevant environmental impacts for representing that product. And now you're just giving it to them to say that, okay, please tell me these at least. If you have more information and better, go ahead, modify the model, or give me your existing one. You can also do that. And you get better data. And this is awesome. It gives so much. Once this scales up and there's a lot of organizations sharing data publicly or sharing privately with their customers, every single LCA becomes better and more precise. And that's something that we should strive for, to make sure that the decision makers can actually make the right decisions and not just go with the gut feeling that, oh, if we reduce our air travel, we reduce our environmental impact, when the true environmental impact is coming from somewhere else. And usually it's somewhere else than the air travel. That's just a simplified model. It's more likely to come from your advertising budget than all the travels with airplanes. So this is connected LCA. And in a way, you get scope 3 data. Now, there's another aspect to scope 3 data. So I mentioned that Earthster can be used for modeling based on any type of standard. And one of them is the greenhouse gas protocol. I happen to have made a template that is publicly available in Earthster. So if you put in the search bar GHG, you will find this template. This is the template. Now, when you import it, so actually this is also something, if you decide to use it, please read the documentation page. When you open the documentation, do the same thing, right? GHG, click enter, and it shows you the instructions how to use other organizations' cycles as a template for yourself. And it tells you what to do. Now let me show you. And why I'm saying that this is important to check it, because when you first open it, it looks empty, but it's not. It's full of information. But it's full of only information that you need to build your model. For example, so in this case, to use Earthster for the greenhouse gas protocol, as for the carbon accounting, what I recommend to do is add everything into production. Even though some parts could be distribution, could be used, but this makes it much clearer for reporting, because when you export this cycle as a CSV template, you get all the tables and everything according to this structure, what the standard is asking for. Now, as you can see here, scope 3, we click on it, there's all the different categories. And now let me show you. If we open the drawer, there is all sorts of information, what data you should add. For example, employee commuting, you go to the info session and it gives you some insights. And all this information is from the protocol itself. There's some links to it. So I have not invented anything. So, and also because I have copied it from there, so it's your responsibility to check that these are correct. but it's a really good starting point that you can use. And let me show you, I started just today adding some example processes. So this is something that if someone wants to help in, I'm happy to take volunteers and make this an amazing model where we have example processes that could be in a template like this. And once you have it, it would be super easy to fill out, and you're like, okay, this is the environmental impact of my whole organization for a year. Okay, so this is basically the real scope 3, because in here, when we're talking about scope 3 emissions, it refers to the greenhouse gas protocol. LCA itself doesn't have scope 3, but of course, you can combine different standards and methodologies to do it and report accordingly. The same thing as I showed you the model with the EPD, the PCR. You create this structure and start adding all the processes that you need based on what the product category rules is saying. And if you keep it as a starting point, all your models can be done accordingly. Now, let me see, do we have any other questions? I think not at the moment. Simo, do you want to add anything? Anything you want to comment on?
Add myself here.
Yeah,
Yep.
I had to add yours you into the.
Yeah. So maybe to answer a little bit about the question about selective products and categories. So you can always choose just specific products that you show to your customers. And if you've made LCAs for different geographies, you can always show just the relevant one to your customers. So it doesn't mean that you show all your LCAs to your customers. You have to select which ones are shown. And yeah, well,
Exactly.
that's about everything I had on these topics.
Sounds good. And those were really good add-ons. Thank you. And yep, so you are cherry picking the cycles you want to share, and the releases help you make sure that they get the right data. So the releases are also there for that you can edit your cycles in peace, and when you say done for now, you issue a release, and then it sends these so-called push notifications so others to keep their data updated, or yourself. Now let me check my cheat sheet meanwhile what I wanted to show. Oh yeah, so I mentioned already today about the upcoming EcoInvent database. So we already got a thumbs up for it. So it's about a matter of just doing it. So probably it will be tomorrow. Tomorrow or at the latest on Friday. Then we have about 10 minutes that I want to show, and that is parameters. They are not live for almost none of you. We have one company who are using it as an early access. And if you want to use it as an early access, let me know. You can send me a message on LinkedIn or rather here, heini@earthster.org, and we can do it. We can activate it for you. And why I'm saying early access is because it's not done yet. There are still bits and pieces that need to be fixed, and you might find bugs. So that's why we don't put it out there for everyone. But it's works already, and you can create amazing models. Let me show you the one I have. I need to close many of these tabs here. So the one I was showing you before is I have made a model of packed fruits. The situation is fruits packed in a tiny cardboard box with plastic, and options of having in there apricots and peaches, for example. Transport from Murcia to Valencia. So where it's produced in Murcia and it's coming to the stores in Valencia. And what I've seen actually in the store is why I made this model, because I was really upset in the store that one that marketed itself as locally produced had the packaging and the same apricots that were produced in Murcia didn't. So I wanted to know that, like, okay, which one is really better for the environment? The 0 kilometer with packaging or 200 kilometers without packaging? I haven't done the comparison itself, but now you understand the concept of this model. And here, as you can see in this typical example, the packaging itself has a bigger environmental impact than producing the fruits, or even compared to the distribution. So in this case, there is assumed that there is a distribution and packaging. And what makes this model special is that I used parameters to do this. In my user, you already have it. So I have it already. And this is how it looks when you have set up parameters. We have two different types. You can add numeric parameters. So for example, specifying the weight of the product. And you have options parameters, which are there for using as alternatives. So amazingly useful when you have created a sort of template that you can say that, what if it's apricots? What if it's peaches? What if it's plums? You build your model with those option parameters, you add the calculations accordingly, and one click and it updates your model. And this is how it looks when it's done. Let me show you quickly how the calculations look like. For example, apricot production. You can see here that it's 0, the value, because I'm using in this calculation, I'm saying that for this process, it takes the option of apricot and multiplies that by the fruit weight that I have specified. And since we have in the parameters selected that the current version that we're doing our calculations with is peaches, that particular process is 0. And if we go back here, as you can see, the peach has a value. So it's exactly the same formula. Super powerful, because this means that I'm using the fruit weight, for example, in this model in many, many places. Look, if I open here, it says in 5 different places I'm using this. That means that if this changes, I need to change it to 1 place, not to 5, if I have modeled this model with parameters. And as you can see, it's this is how you see where it is. It's in waste management, in distribution, all these places affected. And you're able to see the calculation itself. You can use these parameters and calculations to do complex calculations. So you don't have to use the parameters itself. Like, parameters are in a way variables. So you don't have to use it, but they are there for a reason. And this is a really good example that makes your life easier. I have added the transportation distance because that's what normally people know, that it's 500 kilometers. Then that's multiplied by all the different weights, so the total weight. And in this case, I had to divide it by 1,000. And why is that? Because my transportation process that I have added is metric ton kilometers. But of course, my model, the way I add the value is in kilos. I could have even done it in grams and then the formula would be accordingly. But this way, I know that I can add it in kilos and this value will be correctly calculated. I don't need to, as long as I have added my formula easily. Wait, I'm not managing to click on it here. And you can build all these formulas. For example, you just click here. This is a bad example, but it's made in a way that it's super simple to use. And in the next session, I will deep dive into parameters, because by that time it will be publicly available, or for all the users, I mean, you will have parameters, but now only for the ones who want early access. And promises not to freak out if there's some bugs. And not only promises, but promises to give me feedback so that we can fix those. But this is about parameters. really useful. Maybe one more thing that I can show you related to it is where it comes super handy is for building scenarios or checking what if. Now, for example, here you can see that this is the model where you see you can zoom in and out a bit. And if I change the weight of the fruit, let's imagine it's a much bigger box, it automatically updates it. So if you have built your models with parameters, you can do these kind of instant, what if I change the material type? What if I change the weight of anything? And in this case, for example, the difference between these weights and this one is that in the parameter itself, I have added a range, an existing range that can be a minimum and maximum, and this I did not. So here I have to do it manually, but it does the same thing, calculates it. And the last step, what you can do with parameters is you can create scenarios to compare. You add one, you do some changes, for example, changing the distance, changing a few things, you say add comparison, you can rename those, and when you click compare, you are comparing of the same cycle that you have, the different scenarios of it. The what that you changed with the parameters. And you didn't have to change your model or anything, you just changed those. And this is super powerful for sales purposes, for example, or eco design in generally. Because once you do a few of those changes, you can take a screen print of this or share straight away within your organization. And the bosses are like, wow, so cool. So if we change this process, we would have a lower environmental impact. That way, you can actually achieve any type of environmental goals that you might have. If you want to go net zero, this will help you. We have 4 minutes left. I'm gonna take Simo back. And let's see, any last questions? If not, then I would like to tell you that our next session will be on the 22nd of November. Let me snatch the link and put it on LinkedIn so you can sign up to it already. Next session. A bit difficult to multitask. But now you have it. So that's the next session. So these sessions are happening monthly, and sometimes we have specific topics webinars. And that's something that if you have any idea, or not ideas, more like wishes that you would like us to go through, please give us feedback. We are all ears. We want to help you make your LCAs much better.
Yeah. And I would maybe add to the end that we're doing the survey for what kinds of different sustainability and environmental impact requirements different stakeholders and customers have. Maybe we can share the link again at the end. So if you participate, you will get the study report that shows overall what kinds of different requirements customers have, and you may understand what's coming in the future if it's not already on your table. And if you wanted to get the presentation I showed you earlier, email me at simo@earthster.org, and I will supply that to you.
Sounds perfect. And one last thing, in case you don't have yet an account, go to earthster.org and check out what we offer. Thank you for this. It was a really nice session. Hopefully you find it useful, and see you next month.
Thank you. See you.